Okay. Thank you. Brought a pencil. Okay, we're holding Ayin, page 70, right on the top by the two dots, 5 lines from the top. 70b. Ayin and base. Omar Kiss forget Lish. We thank Hashem that we're able to learn Torah every day, and in the schus of our learning, we should have the base of Mikdash. So the Gemara starts like this. It's a quote from the Mishnah, and then we're going to explain it. Omar Kiss forget Lishti. Mishnah said, if someone says, ready to get to my wife, and he was saying at that time, when after you finish that statement, he gets Kedaikas. Kedaikas, we said, was this illness that makes him crazy. It comes from drinking wine that's fresh wine, and there's a remedy for it and all of that. Okay. So B'chazav Amar, when he has this illness, he has this temporary insanity. He says, "Al tichtavu, don't write the get." That temporary insanity at the end, we ignore that. Right? So we say so what he says at the end is worthless, and the fact that he gave instructions before, that's the main thing. He gave instructions to write the get. When he went crazy, he said to stop it. So we ignore that second statement because he went crazy. And we still give the get. Because when he was sane, he said give the get. Okay.
So we don't want her to stuff with the crazy.
No, it doesn't have to do with what we want her to be stuck with. Yeah, what we're saying here is that any statement that he makes when he's crazy is we ignore. So when he was sane, he said he wants to divorce her, gave the instructions. So we continue with those instructions, even though he retracted on that. But when he retracted, that was when he was insane.
But I think we're going to learn in the next page, because I was running ahead, that if he gives a get to his woman, this woman goes crazy, that no, he wants something like that. We're not allowed to let him.
Yeah, that we'll see soon. That we'll see.
Yeah, but
we'll see. That's a different story. That's a different story.
Okay.
That's a different story. That's because she can't handle herself. She can't. Yeah. That's because she can't take care of herself, and she may be mistreated. Crazy, he's crazy. It's a different story. She's normal. She's a regular woman. There's nothing wrong with that. She can. She won't be mistreated. Right. Okay. I'm Reb Shimon ben Lakish. We have machlekes here between Reb Lakish and Reb Yochanan. Kaisvin nice and get la'alter. Reb Lakish says that even though he's crazy right now, but the agent isn't crazy. He told an agent to write the get and all of this, right? The agent can still give the get. The instructions were given, he gives the get. He's alive. There's nothing wrong, right? He's alive, the husband's alive, and the agent's normal. Not normal, sane. Normal. Normal means he's crazy, because normal means he's like everyone else. It means the agent is sane. Okay. Rabbi Yochanan says, "Ein kais min alakashish you can only write it after he comes back to being sane." Okay, you hear what just happened there? He was sane when he gave the instructions to write the get. Then he goes crazy. The halacha is we still give the get, even though after he was crazy he took it back. We ignore that. We still give the get. So the question is, when do you give the get? You give the get while he's crazy, or only after he comes back to his sanity? If he comes back to his sanity, so what's the big deal? I mean, what does it mean you still give the get? The answer is, we're going to see in a moment, that you don't have to re-give the instructions. On those same instructions, they can give the get. The Gemara starts like this. My time of the Rish Lakish. What's the reason why Rish Lakish says that you can give the get immediately, even though the husband is right now insane? The Tani. The reason is, what he said afterwards is worthless, right? He said, what did he say afterwards? Don't give the get. That he was insane when he said that, so we ignore it. Rabbi Yochanan, our Malach Rabbi Yochanan says, "Ein b'dvarav achreinim klum." What he said afterwards is worthless, is nothing. When he comes back to his clarity, you don't have to ask him again, do you still want to give the get? But he was insane that is absolutely meaningless. And his original instructions was give the get. So we give the get once he comes back to his clarity. But you can only write the get once he comes back to his sanity. But Micah Miflagi, the Gemara says, what is the basis of this machlekes? If you have to hold off on the get until he comes back to his sanity. Rish Lakish says that you don't have to, you can give it right away, Madam and Eliashin. Compares it to someone that's asleep. Just like when someone that's asleep, let's say someone gives instructions to divorce his wife. Then after he gives instructions, so relaxed, he goes down and takes a nap. They give the get and he's sleeping. Is that acceptable? Yeah. He doesn't have to be awake while they're giving the get. So this person also, he gave instructions to write the get. He goes temporary insane. And they give the get. Everything is good. It's like he's asleep. He's asleep. He's like temporary insane, right?
Does it depend why he's insane?
Yeah, but we'll see in a minute. Rabbi Yochanan, Madam Leila Rabbi Yochanan says no. It's compared to someone that's crazy, and a crazy person can't give a get. He's not asleep. He's crazy. He lost his sanity. The Gemara says, Rabbi Yochanan nami lidmaya yashin. Why doesn't Rabbi Yochanan compare him to someone that's asleep? The Gemara says, yashin le'mechosar ma'isa, hay mechosar ma'isa. Someone goes to sleep. He just wakes up naturally. You don't have to do an action to wake him up. This would be if you can do anesthesia. Yeah, if anesthesia just wears off. They wake up naturally. Right? They don't like bring them out. How does that work? They don't bring them out of it. It wears off. Next week.
I'm going on the anesthesia.
And then they have to, but then how do they take them out? Okay, so over here what we're saying is, okay, so they don't have to do an action to take them out. They just stop the medicine that makes them
so weak.
Right. So there's a big difference between someone that's asleep and someone like this. You see, when someone's asleep, he just naturally wakes up. So you can give a get. There's no action that's required to bring him back to his sanity. But this person, you bring him back to his sanity, you have to feed him red meat and diluted wine. He needs an action to bring him back. Rish Lakish, the Gemara says, Nami nidmaya l'shaita. Why don't they compare him to a shaita? Or a shaita? Shaita means an imbecile. Did I just spill it? Or is it leaking? Oh, there's the hole. So, yeah, it's a tiny hole. He said about Reb Chaim, he learned with Reb Chaim had two sons, I think. He had the Brisker Rav, he's Reb Velvel, and Reb Moshe. Moshe was Rabbi Soloveitchik's father, like the nephew of the Mishpur. So he learned with Reb Velvel. This is what they say in Brisk in Eretz Yisrael. He learned with Reb Velvel. I said, how come you didn't learn with Reb Moshe? He said like this, that if there was a cup that had a hole in it, so it says, why is the water coming out? So Moshe would say, because there's a hole. Velvel would say, because there's no cup. It's not if it has a hole, it's not a cup. But anyway, it's like the brisket type of thing. Is it a cup with a hole, or is it? It's not a cup.
There's no with a hole. It's not like,
Yeah. If it's a full insanity, I'm not sure. For Rish Lakish, maybe. For Rabbi Yochanan, you'll never be able to give the get if he's never recovers. And the question is if Rish Lakish would still, if it was a different type of insanity. I have to see other Gemaras. You have to compare this. Okay, so Rish Lakish Nam in the Ma'ila Shaita. I think they just say Kodaikas. Do they have a? Why doesn't Rish Lakish compare him to someone that's insane that cannot give the get? It says Shaita leSamya biyadan. We don't have any solution to get him out. Hi Samya biyadan. Here we have a solution, which is Bisra Sumka Gumrei v'Chamra Marka. We have a way of getting him out. So he's not like really insane. He just has to eat the meat. Eat the meat and drink the wine, and then he's gonna get better. Yeah. And then wait a week. Right. So they say if you take the medicine, then you'll get better in a week. Without it, it's going to take 7 days. Okay. So
our saying was a cold goes away a week without the doctor and 7 days with the doctor.
So right here, what we have is what would Hillel, according to this, if he's actually insane, then Rish Lakish would agree that he can't give the get. This is only Kodaikas. This is like this type of insanity that comes on him if he drinks this wine and he gets it off if he eats that meat. But a real insanity, it looks like Rish Lakish would agree. Miyamar Rabbi Yochanan Hachi, does Rabbi Yochanan really say that you have to wait to give the get? Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Shmuel, but we have a statement from Shmuel. Okay. Name of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says the name of Shmuel. Shachat Beishnayim. That let's say there's a person that his neck was cut. A Reiv Shnayim, the 2 pipes in his neck, and or the majority of the 2 pipes. So Varamas, and while he's dying, he hints, V'amar Kisuget Lishti. And he says he can't talk because his voice boxes. But he hints, he says, write a get to my wife. So he's still allowed to write the get. Now we're comparing this to someone that's insane. Betanya, we have another brisa that says Ru Maguyad. Let's see someone whose body was like chopped up. Or he's crucified, hanging. This was a Roman punishment. They hung him on a pole or something. And he hints and he says, write a get to my wife. You're still allowed to write the get. So we're thinking that these people that are dying in a rather gruesome fashion are insane at that time because of the distress that they're in, and we're saying that they can write the get. And Rabbi Yochanan, who talks about someone that's temporarily insane, says he can't write the get until he recovers. And over here it says that they can write the get. It says, what are you comparing? Over there, we're not saying that he's insane, but they were just saying, we're saying his mind is clear. He just has a weakness, extreme weakness. Yes, his neck is cut. But over here, over here, he's totally confused. Yeah, he's so that's a different story. By our case, Rabbi Yochanan says he can't give the get. Over there, he's just very weak. Okay. Say Dessler writes about this. Someone on his that they're taking him to the guillotine. It says as they put his head down, to chop up his head, he becomes relaxed. He gives up from all his. Before he's like a tall, finished and everything. He comes like there's a level of peace where he's not insane. He actually has clarity of his mind with that. Like he lets go. So, no, that's the rights about this. Rights about Shmuel Hachi. The Shmuel say that the story of someone, and that's not a story, it's a halacha. Someone that his neck was cut, the majority of his neck was cut, the 2 pipes, majority of the 2 pipes. it says that you can still give a get. V'amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, Rav Yehuda says in the name of Shmuel, Shachat Peishnaim Reiv Shnaim Barach Midam Alav. If someone is a husband and his neck was cut, so basically there's a witness there that sees what just happened to this guy. He runs and he tells his wife, "Your husband died." Now he didn't actually see that he died. He saw that his neck was basically cut. Majority was cut. So and the wife is now allowed to go and get married. Now, if you say, Shmuel had a comment about this situation. Shmuel's comment before was that the person at that point can still write a get to his wife, even though his neck was cut. On the other hand, we have a statement from Shmuel that the witness can run and say that he died. Now, how does that work? Is he dead, or or can he write a get? Can't have both. Umar says that's also not a problem. 1 second before we get to that. If you say that he's alive, why are you allowed to testify that he's dead? You're right. He's alive now, but he's going to die. There's no way out of that. The Gemara says if that's the case, then why, if a person cuts the neck of someone, we say that he doesn't have to go to Gullus. If he's for sure going to die, then we should say that he should go to Gulluses. They should have to run to the city of refuge if he cut it by mistake. Allah Matani, why was it taught in the Brisa? He does not go to exile. It's as if he didn't really kill him. Somehow he died later. It says, that's not a real question. We have a statement. I think that maybe the reason why he died was infection. The doctor's like, whatever.
Leave me out of this.
Okay. Or it could be that because of distress, he actually maneuvered and moved himself in different ways, like convulsions or something. And that's what actually caused him to die. It wasn't there was a combination there. It was the person cut him plus his own actions. So my binai, what's the difference between these two possibilities? It could be now the shachti bebeisit the shisho perchas. One difference would be that he was shechted in a house where there's no wind, there's no infection, sterile conditions, but nevertheless he still moved around. He had convulsions, so you don't have the infection part, but you do have the other part. Inami the shachti bebrabli perchas, or maybe there were no convulsions, but he was slaughtered outside. And so that would be a difference in these two.
So if two people are fighting on a flat roof where there's no marker, and one is there, A is stabbing B, multiple, what should be mortal wounds, all right? And then B finally, out of weakness, falls back because there's no marker and dies. It's the owner of the house that's responsible.
Yeah.
Because you just let
right.
the stabber off the hook. No?
I think it says that if someone kills a treifa, he's exempt. Once he's a treifa, once he's for sure dying, then I think he's exempt.
But we don't know he's died. You know, he died after he fell off the roof.
No. Oh, I hear what you're saying.
Is this civil or?
I don't know. Okay.
I think I heard that this discussion in the Gemara came into play after 9/11, when there were instances of people who were above the floor. It was possible to escape, and they had, from Jews, he had enough presence of mind to call his Rav and say, "Give my wife a get."
Right.
And I believe there was reference to this discussion.
Right. That makes sense. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. But they say that's the same case as this. It's a good comparison. Nishtatek v'amrulai, let's see, we were holding the two das. Nishtatek v'amrulai nichtav get l'ishtachulu. If someone becomes mute and he says, write a get, he can't say, he's mute. They tell him, should we write a get for your wife? and he says he can't say, he nods his head yes. So then they're allowed to write the get, as long as they ask him 3 times to make sure he knows what he's saying. They have to check to make sure his nods are actually accurate. But well, maybe he got a twitch and he's nodding his head. And is that how they translate it? He's just going like this. He's nodding his head because he has a twitch. Well, it would be lav. He's saying no when they're checking. Involuntary movement. Okay. So inami shichya dehein nakte. Maybe he has a twitch to say yes when they're asking him the questions. How do you know what he really means? This would not stand in court. The devil's advocate. I didn't say that. That was just a twitch. That was a tick. I'm Rabbi Yosef Bar Menumi. I'm Rabbi Nachman. Rabbi Yosef Bar Menumi says the name of Rabbi Nachman. Damnina lebesirugin. Because they asked him questions and then they waited. So we're getting the responses with delays. Maybe he has a tick that only comes with delays. No, they asked him two yeses and 1 no, or 2 no's and 1 yes. So that way we know that it's different types of questions. So then we know it's not involuntary movement. It's a voluntary movement that he's answering the questions. Rabbi Shmuel Tana was taught in the house of Rabbi Shmuel. We tell him winter statements in the summer, and we tell him summer statements in the winter. Mind you, what are you talking about? Summer statements? Do we say, if you want to say that, we tell him, would you like a blanket or would you like a coat? That's not a proof that he knows what he's saying. If he's crazy. But now it's the opposite question. That's it. If he answers yes, I want a coat, and it's really in the summer, maybe he was grabbed by chills and he wanted a coat. Maybe it was in the winter, and he says he doesn't want the coat. Maybe it's because he was hot. We're offering him fruits. We're giving him mangoes in the winter. Taisus points out that, well, it's not that we're giving him mangoes. We're asking, would you like me to pick mangoes off the tree? That's what they're saying. Otherwise, maybe it was pickled mangoes or candied mangoes, dried. What's it called when they make jam? What's it called?
Jelly.
The jelly. Okay. Amar Rav Kana, Amar Rav. We have a statement from Rav Kana in the name of Rav. Okay, this is a brand new topic over here. It's going to take us till the Mishnah. And Rav tells us a din. Rav Kana was a student of Rav, a famous student of Rav. We're talking over here, as we'll see later in the Gemara, we're talking about someone that was not born a deaf mute. He became deaf later. And he's a deaf mute, but he wasn't born like, in other words, he was an educated person that later lost his hearing and his speech. But he could write. So he could communicate through writing. He writes, he can give instructions to write a get to his wife through text. Okay. Amar Rav Yosef, Rav Yosef says, "My Kamash Milan, what is Rav Kana saying in the name of Rav? What is the chiddush that he's telling us? Tanina, that's what our Mishnah said. Nishtatik, if someone becomes, you see, Rav, and Rav Kana would only be saying something that wasn't in the Mishnah. They're Amirayim. If I have a Mishnah that says it, I don't need them to say it. Nishtatik, if someone becomes mute, and they said to him, should we write a get to your wife? He nods his head. He's allowed to do motions with his head. So of course, if he writes, of course we can give a get. Why does Rav need to tell that to me? That's the writing is also a motion. It's probably better. Amalei Reb Zera says, Ilim Kamret. That was talking about someone that was mute, not deaf mute. Shani Ilim, a mute is different. The Tanya was taught in a brayso. Medaber vein shemeya zeh cheirish. You see, medaber vein shemeya is not the cheirish that Rav is talking about. But that's called it. Someone that speaks but can't hear is a cheirish. It's a type of cheirish. Shemei Bein Medaber, someone that hears but doesn't speak. So Elam, that's a mute. These are people that are considered sane. They're not insane. They're just people. They're sane. Rav was talking about a different type. Rav was talking about someone that's a deaf mute. Okay, so that we don't have a source for the Mishnah, and so therefore we said, why does Rav need to say this? Because the Mishnah wasn't talking about a case like that. How do you know that someone that speaks is but is deaf? It's called a cherish. How do you know that someone that can hear but can't speak is called an elam? The ksiv, we have a pasuk, like a deaf that I can't hear, and like a mute that can't open his mouth. If you want, I have another interpretation of the word elam, kadamri inshi, ishtakel milulei. His words have been taken away. Now the word ishtakel has an aleph and a lamed, and then the mem of milulei, so that makes it like a acronym of elam. Okay, so that's could be the source. Amar Rab Zeir says he had a question on Rav. He said, why does Rav need to say this? We have a Mishnah. And he answered the question. He said the Mishnah wasn't talking about the case that Rav's talking about. Rav's talking about a deaf mute. The Mishnah's talking about just a mute. If you want to ask a kasha on Rav, says Rab Zeir, here's the question. The Tanya was taught in a Braisim La Yagid that if a person is supposed to be saying testimony because he knows testimony, and they ask him, do you know testimony? And he doesn't come forward. So he has to bring a sacrifice. Well, this is coming to exclude Pratli Elim, someone that's a mute, that he wasn't able to talk anyway. Not able to talk, he doesn't have to bring the sacrifice. Only someone that should have spoken. But here he can't speak, he's a mute. Why are we being lenient on him? He could have written down his testimony. Abaya says to Rab Zeira, Eidus Kamrit. We're talking about testimony. Testimony is different. The Eibishter says by their mouth, by the mouth of the witnesses, not by their writing. We don't take written testimony, only take verbal testimony. Rashi says, what about documents? We accept documents. That seems to be a written testimony. It's a big question. Rashi says that that's the custom. That's the way it's done. Don't compare it to a shtar, to because that's the normal way. When it comes to testimony, it's different than a document. I think the Rambam has a different interpretation. I think the Rambam says that biblically, we don't accept documents either. It's just the rabbis instituted that we should accept documents in court because that's how business is done.
That's a shtar.
Yeah, the concept of a shtar biblically doesn't work. Because what's the shtar? The shtar is two witnesses that sign on the document. But that's edus. Edus can't be a document. Edus has to be verbal. How does the document work? So the rabbinically, according to the Rambam, the document works.
So how that just throws out a whole get?
The get is not a testimony. The get is actually there's an edus and then there's a get. Yeah, but the get is not a contract. Both a ksuba is a contract, but the kedushin, if someone marries a woman by giving her a ring, so that's not a contract, right? And if he marries her by giving her a contract that says you are married to me with this contract, so with this document, so that's not a contract. That's a marrying her with the shtar. That's a chalais. That's creating something. The get is also like making her free. It's not it's not a testimony in court. It is the divorce. Not a testimony of a divorce. It is the divorce.
Of course, getting divorced is going to bring the ksuba.
Now,
she's going to bring the ksuba.
She'll bring a ksuba. Ksuba is a monetary agreement that a husband and wife have. She'll bring the get to show that she's divorced, but it's not a testimony of divorce. It is.
So what is an example?
Testimony is a document that says that I borrowed money from you, and there's two witnesses signed on it. So it's as if they would have gone to court and said he owes him money.
Oh, so there it's okay.
Over there, it's okay. The question is, why is it okay? That's the okay. So Abaya says, "What are you talking about over there? We are. You can't ask a kasha on Rav Rav said that Rav Kana says the name of Rav, that how could a person, the Rav says that a person can instruct that a get be written by text, by writing something. That's not a question how you can have testimony because texting. Because over there that's a testimony, and a testimony can't be done by text. Okay, by the written word. Meisvei, the Gemara is a question. It's a question on the answer that we just gave, that we made a difference between testimony and other things. It says the question goes like this: we have a Tosefta. Rish Perakei. I guess it means over here. Let's see if that's what that means. Yeah, it's a Tosefta right here in Parakeh. These Gemaras is Tosefta in back. Here, this Gemara I don't think has. Okay, so it says Kshem Shabbat can I say Gittin Kach Bait can I say Lemasais Lematanis Leidas Lirushes. Okay, it says like this: that just like if someone is mute, you have to check to see if he knows what he's saying when he nods his head. So too, you have to check if he knows what he's saying when there does business, for testimony, and for inheritance. Now we're assuming over here that how is he giving this testimony? He's writing it down. How is he? But you're asking him if he understands. Difference. He's nodding his head. I guess the question is that if he has to verbalize it, then we shouldn't be accepting anything else, not the written word and not the nodding of the head. So Amar Ktani, it says about testimonies that would be accepted even though he's mute. Amar Rav Yosef Bar Minumi, Amar Rav Sheshes Beidus Isha de Kila Baraban. We're talking about a testimony, not a regular testimony. We're talking about a testimony that a woman's husband died and she's able to get remarried. Over there we're more lenient. We don't need a full testimony over there. Just like we would accept someone that wasn't usually trusted in court. So over here, we're going to use a mute. But it says about inheritances. And what was inheritance? We were thinking that he's testifying that someone else should be inheriting. Gemara says, no, that's not what he's testifying. We're talking about Amravo Yushas B'nai Bachar. He's saying that this child is not a firstborn, which that he's able to testify. He's able to, we trust him, and it doesn't have to do with testimony. What would he be saying? He would be saying that instead of the son taking two portions, he was only getting one portion. And he's saying that because the father is trusted to say which child is a firstborn. Maybe he's saying, I really have a son that was earlier that died or something. It's not a firstborn.
If he had a son from a previous marriage, and the second marriage, and then got divorced second marriage, there's no bechor in the second marriage.
I think so. I think that's how it works.
Because he
Son
had
of
it
the right.
before the first time.
I had a son before, yeah. No, not by inheritance. By pidyon aban, for redemption, it was by the woman. It went by both, I think. Yeah, I think it went by both.
Multiple deaths.
Yeah. But what about business? My love Alma. It must be that he's testifying about other people's transactions.
I think that multiple fathers, so that multiple sons died.
Nice.
Same house. Mothers and multiple fathers,
Right.
but they were unknown.
Right. Loyla Diday. They called him by the last names.
No. There was one father. He had 4 sons. He didn't realize 3 of them didn't father. And then Makas
Okay.
one son, 4 of them died.
So my love, Lialma, we're talking about that he's testifying about business. The Gemara says, Loyla Diday, he was testifying. He wasn't testifying. He was just saying about himself. Probably that means he's admitting to something which isn't considered real testimony. Okay. Meisri, the Gemara has a question going back on Rav. Rav said that someone that was that's a deaf mute is able to write. Cheresh, when it comes to a deaf mute, says clearly, we don't trust him. We don't trust him what he's writing. We don't trust his hints, his motions with his hand. We don't trust his handwriting. Only regarding metaltlin, only regarding personality, but not regarding a get. Gemara says, that's not a problem because Tanaihi, it's actually a machlekes. And Rav would be following this other opinion. The Tanya was taught in a brisa. Once we say Tanaihi, we could just say that Rav Tanu Palik. We didn't have to get into this, but it turns out we do have a Tana. So Reb Shimon ben Gamliel says, but when do we say that you can't trust a deaf mute regarding a get? That's becherish miikari. That's only if he was a deaf mute from when he was born. He's allowed to even to write, and they can sign that you can trust what he's writing because he's considered a sane person. He just doesn't have the ability to hear or speak, but he's considered a sane person. Mar says as a question. Okay, so basically we have a Reb Shimon ben Gamliel that Rav would be holding like in Rav's case of a cherish was talking about where he became a deaf mute later on in life. Cherish miikari lai. Someone that was deaf mute from birth, we don't trust him. Why are you being so strict on him? How in the world did he get married? The only way such a person could get married was by making signs with his motion. So the whole marriage would have only been a rabbinic marriage. So why can't he instruct the divorce with the same sort of instructions? The same way he got into it, he got out, he can get out of it. If he would be someone that became a deaf mute later, and he got married as a
What about a Yavama?
one second. You're jumping. Very good. Very good. Let's say one step at a time. Let's say he would have been a deaf mute later on in life. So he got married when he was healthy. Then afterwards, he's a deaf mute. So there we would say, well, even though he's a deaf mute now, but he's still sane. So that we don't have a problem. But if he was always a deaf mute, so then we would say that marriage he wasn't even able to get married unless the rabbinic institution of a marriage for a deaf mute. So now for that rabbinic institution, the rabbis could also have the divorce. It says, you're right. The rabbis could have a divorce if it would be a deaf mute like that. You were dealing with the Yavama, which means like this. The simple case would be, the Gemara is going to discuss it, but basically, this is a guy that really is marrying his brother's wife. And so he has a biblical marriage, biblical obligation to marry her, which he does. And now when he tries to get divorced, he's a deaf mute. He can't divorce her. So he gets locked in. Yavamta miman. How was he a Yavama?
So did he marry her? Or
He did. He did marry her.
So there was no chalitza.
He can't do chalitza because he can't speak. Chalitza requires speech. So he does yibam. And now he's stuck because he has a biblical marriage to his sister-in-law, his wife. And he can't can't do a get because he's a deaf mute. So who's the Yavama from? The Gemara says a very interesting case. Maybe his brother was also a cheresh. I think this is genetic. His brother's also a deaf mute. So 1 second. So this whole yibum was only a rabbinic sort of yibum. The mode. Getting it.
From Snake Creek.
So just like the brother got into this with hints with his hand, with making allusions, gestures. So that's how we'll get out of it. This guy can get out of it by doing a gesture. He can give a get. Rather, it must have been that his brother was a healthy person. He marries a regular woman. Well, let's not confuse that. He gets married. Okay, the healthy person gets married, so he has a biblical marriage. Now, this brother who's a deaf mute ends up being the new husband through this biblical law of Yibam, and now he can't divorce her. Iba Yasema, we have another teretz. Really, his brother was also a deaf mute. But we have a decree that his brother, that's a cheresh, that's similar to his brother that's healthy. And what we're going to say is like this. We're going to say that since if his brother's healthy, he can't get divorced, so too the cheresh also can't get divorced. Also, if his brother was, even though the original marriage to the deceased brother, he was also a deaf mute, but nevertheless, we can't allow this new husband, the yavam, to get divorced, because we might get confused between if the original brother was healthy, then he would not be allowed to get divorced. So we make a gzeira on that. When it says Yihachi, if you're into gzeiras, that's what you're doing, ishteinami, then maybe you want to make a gzeira, you shouldn't be able to divorce his wife, because maybe he's going to be getting into a marriage that's really his brother's wife, which was a biblical marriage, because his brother was healthy and had a real marriage, and now he shouldn't be able to divorce his own wife. Because yivam to michlafa. That's possible to confuse what the original brother's marriage was. Was he a healthy person? Was he a deaf mute? But no one's going to get confused between if he's divorcing his wife or he's divorcing his sister-in-law, who's now his wife. We think that that will remember, even though he's married to her, now he wants to divorce her. But we'll say no, this is a biblical marriage because he comes from his brother. That will hold on to. That will be able to remember. The Gemara says, do you really think that we're going to make a decree that maybe the brother's marriage was healthy, and so therefore we're going to make every marriage that's to a brother's wife, we're going to make it prohibited, even when it's prohibited to get divorced, even when this brother was a cheresh. But we have a mishnah that goes like this: Shnei Achin, two brothers, Charashin, that are deaf mutes. Nesu and Shtei Achayis Piklis, that are married to two healthy sisters. Shtei Achayis Charshes. There's two sisters that are deaf mutes. Shtei Achayis are there's two sisters, Achas Pikach, Achas Charshes. One is like this, one is healthy, one is not. One is a deaf mute. Bechin Shtei Achayis are there's two sisters, Charashes, that are deaf mutes. Nesu Shtei Achin Piklis. They're married to two brothers that are healthy. Shnei Achin Charashin, or there's two brothers that are deaf mutes. Or two Charashes married to two Charashin. Shnei Achin, or they're married to two brothers. Echad Pikech, Echad Cheresh. All basically you have all the possible options here. I don't know how many that is. Ariela Peturis Mina Chalitza. They don't have to do Chalitza. Mina Yibam, and from Yibam. Why don't they have to do Yibam? Because why don't they have to do Chalitza? Because they're two sisters. Because already this was the first mission in Yivamis. You can't marry two sisters. So when the brother passes away, because of this co-wife that you have, your first wife, you can't marry okay, so you're exempt from Ibam and Chalitza. But if they weren't sisters, Yichnasu, you can marry them, and if he wants to divorce them, he can divorce them. 1 second. How can he divorce them? You should make a decree, because it could have been that the original marriage was a pikayach. You told me you make a decree that even if here it's a cheresh, but you can't divorce because he's a cheresh now. You can't divorce because maybe the original brother was, even if the original brother here that was married to this woman was not a cheresh, was not a healthy, even if he's a pikayach. We made a gzeira, which says we're going to drop that second answer that it's a decree, and we're going to say that the reason why he can't divorce is because the brother was a pikayach, was a healthy person. He married this woman, and he dies. And now this brother gets involved and does yibam, he can never divorce. Okay. Rabbi Yechanan. Rabbi Yechanan says, I want to finish the Mishnah because I don't want to go over this. Rabbi Yechanan says, Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel has this opinion that there's a difference between if he was born deaf, mute, or not. If he was not, then you can actually do a get if he writes it down, like Rab said. And but everyone else argues on him. That's what Rabbi Yechanan says. Amar Abaya says, we actually have that in the Mishnah that everyone argues on him. It's fine, Rabbi Yechanan, that you're saying it, but we have a Mishnah that says that as well. Usually this is put as a kasha. Over here it looks like it's not a kasha. Nishtatis, if a woman went crazy, you can't divorce her. Nischarish hu nishtata, if he goes crazy or he becomes a deaf mute, he can never divorce her. Maya lamis, what does it mean he can never divorce her? When you're saying never, lamis, he can never divorce her, even though he could write. You see, everyone argues on Reb Shimon ben Gamliel. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel would say that you can write it down, the instructions to divorce her. Everyone else says no. Amar Rav Papa says he loved Ashmin Reb Yechon. If Reb Yechon wouldn't have told us this, have a mean Reb Shimon ben Gamliel through she time of the Tanakam Udasa. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel is not arguing on the Tanakam. He also holds that. So Maya lamis, what does he mean that ever? Avagav the Chazin lein the Charif. Really, we would say, Ilamis, really the Tanakam probably hold like Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, that you can use the written word. But what does it mean, Ilamis? That means even though we see that he is a Charif, that he knows what he's saying, so, but nevertheless, he can't divorce his wife, but unless he gives us the written instruction. But we would accept the written instruction. Okay, inami, or else we could explain it like this: like the Rabbi Yitzchak. We're actually following Rabbi Yitzchak. The Rabbi Yitzchak dvar Torah shaitim eskareshes a shaita, a crazy woman could be divorced according to the Torah. You can divorce a wife that went crazy. Just like you can divorce a wife against her will. What's the worst that a shaita could be? That they don't know what they're doing? Well, what's worse than that is when they don't even want it. It's not like we don't know what they want or something. Even if they don't want the divorce at all, you can still divorce a woman even if she doesn't want it. So for sure you can divorce it if she doesn't know if she wants it or not because she's a shaita. If a man goes crazy, that's a problem. But the woman is he can divorce her according to the Torah. So why did the sages say that they can't divorce her? So she shouldn't be mistreated by everyone else. They want the husband to keep her so that she shouldn't be just wandering around and people will misbehave with her. So it says when the man goes crazy, it says lamis that he can never divorce her because that's the biblical law that he can't divorce her. The other one, it doesn't say lamis because that's only a rabbinic law. Okay, leave it over here.
The joke used